All right, Colin, how you doing today?
I'm good, Harry. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, and I'm excited for today's guest because he is an angel investor, obviously, and an expert in a topic that I honestly know nothing about. So I feel like I selfishly set this one up so that Shawn would like teach me all about DevTools and what he's an expert
I'm happy to do whatever I can.
in.
It's a complex topic.
It's a tough
Awesome. Well,
job, but
y- yeah, and I'm glad we have Shawn. So, Shawn, quickly tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Shawn. I am an angel investor, developer relations person, developer myself. And then right now, I'm actually working on a new startup that I'm trying to start because you can only watch other people do startups for so long before you want to get in the game yourself. And
Nice.
I've been angel investing for 4 years now, and I'm also a scout, which is another topic that you guys want to cover for a fund, CRV Capital. But happy to talk about any of those things. I've made
Cool.
about 25 investments and some zeros, some very successful things, and so I can talk about the full range.
Very cool. And what's your day job, or what was your most recent day job? And then
Yes.
sounds like now you're focused on the startup.
Yeah. So most recent day job, I was head of developer experience for Airbyte, which is the data pipeline company that was most recently valued at I think 1.5 billion,
Cool.
and it's just like all about open source and data integration into companies that you've heard of but never really dug into, like Snowflake and Databricks and Amazon Redshift or Google BigQuery. I'm happy to talk about all those things.
Very cool. And so I guess on the angel investment side, sounds like you've done about 25 angel investments so far. What's your average check size?
I started out with 5K because I didn't know what I was doing, and I think that obviously that's ideal, and then you ramp it up as you go along. So personal check, goes up to about 20K,
Hmm.
and then for the scout checks, it starts at 25 and goes up to 100, depending on how much you think how much you believe in the company versus what the valuation of the company is versus how
Yeah,
much allocation you have left in the scout funding. Happy to talk about all those.
got it. And what
yeah.
type of startups do you look for and what stage?
Yeah, exclusively DevTools. I've done one non-DevTools startup, and I lucked out. I picked one of the two creator economy startups that worked, which is
Which one was that? Circle.
Circle.so.
Very cool.
Everything else basically everything else died, except for Circle and Substack. So I think if you invested in creator economy stuff in 2020, you had to really, really pick them well.
Got it. Got it.
So I think we should just ask so we can educate Harry. Like, what is Dev Tools? What's Dev Relations?
Yeah, Colin,
I've
act
been
like
in
you don't know either.
I've been
Okay.
Please, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
that was a bit of a
No,
straw
it's
man question. I've been in product management for a long time, so I know
Hey,
what
you
the
know what, Colin?
acronyms mean, I
I'm an
guess.
engineer, just FYI, people. Okay.
Space
Retired,
engineer.
but yeah, aerospace. So not the real kind of engineer, but I am a retired aerospace engineer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I tend to break. DevTools are tools for developers, and I think that can be a very broad definition or very narrow definition based on who you talk to. But I try to make it broad just because I need a blanket term for everything that I do.
Hmm.
So that could be cloud infrastructure. So I have a few categories, and I run a Discord with other DevTools investors, and so basically we segment the market by what category they are in, and so
Mm.
the categories that we have are dev productivity, which is like kind of IDE tooling or product management tools. Like Atlassian would count because they interact with
Mm.
DevTools. Atlassian more popularly known for their Jira product management ticketing system. So that's one category, dev productivity. The second category would be databases and data engineering. So if you make a database like uh, uh, Chroma, like a Mother Duck, sorry, these are all like seed stage companies,
Yeah,
and they're not going to be as popular as like a
that's fine. No,
MongoDB
I think
or
it's interesting. Yeah. Give us
Elasticsearch.
what you're doing is perfect.
Okay, so that's the second category, databases and data engineering, which covers Snowflake, by the way, the largest tech IPO of the past decade. Then cloud infrastructure, which is anything to do with deploying things to cloud, running layers on top of clouds, what we call second layer cloud. I worked at both AWS and a second layer cloud myself called Netlify. Now the one that's kind of leading the second layer cloud pack is Vercel, but there are also a bunch of other fresh takes on it, like Railway and Render.com, and I can go more into detail if you want. Then there is low code, no code, which is typically not regarded to be dev tooling, but you can call these sort of citizen developers. And sometimes there's also low code platforms for developers like airplane.dev. And definitely a lot of developers are finding there's a nice intersection between the low code space and developers, because it's just always painful to write code, no matter who you are. And then finally, it's security. So anything to do with screening your stuff. Right.
Got it. Well, I think what was cool I appreciate that. And I feel like I just got the quick education. So don't know what any of it is or does. I mean, other than, security, I think that like high level makes a lot of sense. But I think what was cool in reading about your work and your bio, it seems like there's a lot of communities and Discord and a lot of knowledge being shared in kind of this whole world that obviously is very important to tech and engineering that I think others may not know a ton about. Are there a lot of angel investors in this DevTools space, or are you kind of unique?
I actually don't know, because I don't have any measure for what the relative population of angel investors are in other spaces, like let's say consumer, or like
well, there's a lot in consumer, I think,
medical, or like B2B SaaS that is not dev tooling. So I struggle to make a global observation, because I only do one thing, and that's mainly because I'm not in this to become a thought leader on angel investing. I'm in this because I have friends who are smarter than me, and this seemed like a better thing to do than buy CryptoKitties or whatever.
Gotcha.
I also intend to be a founder someday myself, and working with the founders that I've invested in has given me a lot of insight as to what an early stage company really looks like.
Got it. So it sounds like there are a few reasons why you got into it. If you had to kind of narrow that down and sort of rank your top 2 or 3 reasons, like what was the impetus for getting into angel investing?
Honestly, it's because I made friends with the Superbase team, and they were coming out of Y Combinator, and I was like, these guys sound like they have a really good idea, which is open source Firebase that's based on Postgres, which everyone loves Postgres. And so that was my first angel check, and coincidentally the best performing one so far.
Nice. I'm familiar with that. Well, so it also sounds like you've progressed just from angel investing and what sounds like some good companies here, but also to being a scout. So tell us, what is the scout? Is it like the person that goes in the front of the battlefield and gets killed first, or like what?
In a way, I think it is, right?
So I have, because I'm Singaporean, I have a slightly unique perspective on this, because I've actually been a scout in a military context. And now I'm a scout in a VC context. So cool. A scout would sort of like, be the forward party, very, very light, very, try to remain unnoticed, but try to spot, areas of interest for the main party to go to, right? Call out risks and call out areas of interest. And a scout would, economically, there's the economic relationship, and then there's the sort of professional relationship. The economic relationship is that the main VC funds would assign you a portion of money, typically between 150K to 300K, let's say. And there are deals, and my deal is bigger than that, but there are deals where essentially they're super scouts. So Peter Thiel is renowned for essentially handing you a few $1 million to be a scout. And most people should know that the history of scouting starts with, I think, Jason Calacanis and Sam Altman. Jason's first scout deal with Sequoia was Uber.
Nice.
Which is
that's a good one.
Deal. And
what's Sam Altman, is he like the 3rd or 4th investor in Uber?
Exactly, and it's he can never tell, and it's the fact is lost to history. Sam Altman, most people talk about him for OpenAI, but his first scout deal was Stripe. And most people don't know that.
I feel like there's a theme here, right? If your first deal isn't like a home run, like maybe you're not meant to be. Like you, Shawn, Jason, and Sam Altman, and I don't want to think about what my first deal was, so I'm probably not going to be a home run. But I can live vicariously through you.
Yeah, and happy to talk about this as deal flow, but a quick take on deal flow, and it touches on the thing that you had earlier, is you need to know everyone that is working on anything interesting in the community, and they need to come inbound to you because you provide something of value to them. So we can talk about that as a side thing, but I want to finish up the Scout thing. So the VC fund hands over their economics to you. So let's say the VC takes 20% carry. You would typically take all of that carry from that seed deal, and then they will obviously have the chance to co-invest alongside you. Typically, there'll be a bonus if they do that, because then you've essentially sourced that deal for that company, because they would not have done the deal otherwise. And they're very aggressive and interested in doing that. Typically, that does not happen. They'll either pass or co-invest, and that actually puts their foot in the door for the next round if that company becomes super interesting. And then, so that's the economic deal, and then I want to round out the professional deal. Professional deal is that there's actually a lot of informal back and forth with my Scout partner and I, which is like, hey, what do you think about this company? Like, how do you think of, like, that's them talking to me as a domain expert, and then me talking to them as like, hey, I'm looking at this company. How do you think about it from a VC point of view? Because I don't know that industry as well as they do. They work in it, right? They see a lot more deals than I do. So I think there's a lot of good back and forth that is over and above the partnership. And then there's obviously the side kicker, which is exactly what's working out with me, which is when I start a company, they will have had a multi-year relationship with me. So, they're definitely in the consideration.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that that roundup, and obviously CRV Ventures is a pretty big and well-respected firm. I think I know Sar over there at CRV. How did you sort of get this deal? Because it sounds like a pretty good deal for you.
Yeah, honestly, so I have a big enough audience that I could have done a rolling fund, and I was actually actively exploring rolling fund with AngelList and an operating partner that I had. I just decided it was too much work, and and I didn't want to be continually responsible for fundraising every single quarter. And this Scout deal seemed like way better. So people heard that I was doing this rolling fund, and then they came into me. So it was Andreessen and Sequoia and CRV, and CRV actually just offered the most money. And I was like, I like the partner that I had, and I think the like what I chafe at as an angel is not being able to offer significant investment capital because I'm not rich yet, right? So if I can only give like 10, 15K checks, like that's not actually really going to affect the company in any material way. But if I can go up to 100K, then yes, that's actually going to really help someone who's trying to fundraise. So I'm like, I want more capital to deploy. So went with the money.
That makes sense. I think one of the questions I have about scouting is, it seems like it's with a lot of the like bigger multi-stage kind of funds. Is it really because they don't do a lot at the pre-seed level, like early, and that's kind of like the outsourcing of this essentially?
They do a lot of them, but actually the really hot deals, they struggle to they want to be in the really hot deals. So just they want to see every deal essentially, and they want to have a signal from people like me that this is going to be a good one. And then also, I don't know. I think it's kind of a way to just build intelligence network, like a spy agency almost, like a scout. It's a scout network, right? They only have so many partners, and if you can multiply the number of partners by giving them a little bit of money each, that is really not really going to affect your funds in a material way, but is going to significantly increase their alliance to you, then why not? It's kind of very much like the affiliate partnership of the VC world.
I like the way you put that. And Shawn, so I think it's pretty clear from what you've explained in your bio and, sort of working at large companies and, investing yourself. And it sounds like you're very deep into the communities and running groups. And I think you're blogging and speaking. And it sounds like you've built this great platform. I mean, talk a little bit about how have you advised other people to kind of do this? Because you mentioned inbound. And I think that's a key thing, right? Like you almost want to make so much noise in some area that you're an expert, that you now get the deals, or you now have the funds that want you to be a scout. Like talk a little bit about how you sort of built yourself up to this point and like what you would advise other people. Because I'm imagining like everyone listening right now is probably like, wow, being a scout sounds great. But like how do we, put people on the path to get there if that's something they're interested in?
Well, so for the extremely new angel investors, I should also caution you that like you're essentially doing a bunch of work for free, because you don't see any of this money until maybe you get lucky 7 to 10 years from now. Okay,
yeah, fair.
And some people have gotten extremely rich of their stuff. Most of them will not. And I do this out of love and learning and all that good vibes. And the other thing that I want to respond to in your comment was making a bunch of noise. I think you should try to make a bunch of signal, and the noise is when you fail to achieve signal. But I think that's the difference, because I think a lot of people try to go for quantity without a thesis on quality, and the quantity of output is a means to an end of achieving quality. And if you can achieve quality without quantity, then all more power to you. Okay, with that preface, when I started out, I wasn't intending to do any of this like sort of inbound marketing or anything like that. I just what I'm known for is this philosophy of learning in public. If you type in learning in public in Google, my post comes up because it's pretty well regarded. But it was genuinely like a way to learn for myself authentically and in a networked fashion. When you've got something wrong in public, some people tend to try to correct you because that is how the internet works. And when you've been wrong in public, you will always remember it, right? And I think very much it's just a way of saying like the only thing stopping you from learning faster or learning better is your ego from appearing to look like a fool because you got something wrong. But I think if you can quickly course correct that and show that you listen to others, you really build up a genuine following about the thing that you're interested in. And then, I think that's like sort of like the base tier. And then beyond that is having clear thesis on where the future is going, and then being sort of like a bat signal or like a lighthouse. Both of these terms are, so bat signal was coined by Andrew Chen, who was me before me at Andreessen Horowitz. And then the lighthouse was coined by Matt Kobach, who was most recently director of marketing for Fast.com, which blew up 2 years ago. And then, but basically, it's just when you're sort of like the beacon or like the leading voice on a particular topic or trend, then the people who are fundraising will come to you to try to get you on their cap table because they want to show that you have their endorsements, right? So I have a few blog posts out there that just show up on people's board decks, slide decks when they're fundraising, and then when they say I'm an angel, like the VCs who know of this theme are correspondingly more interested in that. Obviously, that is a very much of a lucky thing. I blog like 50 times a year, and one of those every year would become like a hit, and I can predict ahead of time what it's going to be. But
you can
the
or
goal
can't.
is I mean, I have some idea. Obviously, some things will be less interesting than others, but it's hard. Like, so I have definitely worked on things really intensely and then had them not work out, and I think that's just par for the course. And then finally, so the first tier is learn in public for yourself. Second tier is try to be a beacon for everyone else. Third tier would be try to build community around the various topics that you're interested in. And so when I started my DevTools investing, I also started a DevTools angel investing community. And so everyone else who was sort of vaguely interested in space and had nowhere else to go joined in, and I learned a lot from them. So when you build community, you basically grow with the square of the number of nodes and connections in the community. And the way I like to phrase this for people is you don't have to know everything. You just need to know everybody who knows everything, and have something valuable to offer them. And that's how you build a mafia, I guess.
Very cool. Very cool. And I guess tactically, if you were recommending folks, is there one of those three that you think they should get started in? Or, like you mentioned blog posts, that you do 50 blog posts a year. I mean, that's a lot more than me, and I run a media business. So I'm you know what I mean? Like that's like a big commitment. Is it video or Twitter, or what do you sort of like tactically, if someone came to you for advice, which one of those three items would you tell them to start? Like what should they think about, quickly?
Honestly, do what you're best at, right? I'm a writer,
Okay.
so I write,
Got it.
right? But other people are video people. They should do video. If you're podcast, you do podcast. Like, I don't, there's a huge variety of formats, and some people have natural inclinations to others. I do think that writing is abnormally powerful because it is adaptable to a lot of different forms. And it is more about clarity of thought than actual writing. Like you can write really poorly if you have a good idea.
Yeah. That's a good point. I always kind of joke, especially having started many websites, that like a lot of my sites look like shit, but the content is good and the ideas are good. And like honestly, like we'll hire writers that are bad writers, but if they have a really unique take or a strategy or something that they can share, it will make up for any, lack of writing. You can always learn how to write or write passively, but
just to throw that back on you, how do you interview these writers who are not great writers, but they have good ideas?
I mean, usually what I do is I'll just look for interesting thoughts, interesting takes, people tweeting me, emailing me, and I'll literally just ask them, hey, do you want to write this up? Or maybe, can one of my writers interview you? And I'll usually kind of give them like a deadline, like, hey, can you get a post back to me or an outline back to me within 4 days or 7 days? And just to sort of make sure that they're somewhat reliable, because if they have the greatest idea and I want to hire them as a writer, but they can't get a post back to me, then it kind of defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah. Very cool. I always I'm looking to scale writing beyond myself, and I haven't done that yet. So
yeah, I mean, that is the challenge, I think, on the content side, is that, like you have a day job, you're running a startup, and, blog posts take a lot of time. So, I kind of always joke like content is a product, although most people think of it as a byproduct.
Yes.
I just came up with that right now.
Yeah, I know.
Write it on the wall.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
So I know it's really important for you to build community, build public, do all these things, which I think both Harry and I agree with and have been embracing more and more, especially with this podcast. But
yeah, I do a lot of stuff in public without even asking you, Colin. I just share stats and stuff we're working on. So
yeah, Harry won't ask you if you're comfortable. It'll just happen. So, but do you see this as like the main genesis of your deal flow? Or I mean, if not, how do you get most of your deal flow?
It is.
Okay, great.
So I'm regarded as sort of like a advisor for companies that want to build developer relations practices or developer communities, because I've done both at three unicorns. So I think I think somewhat that is undeserved, because I was to a lot of things, like you get credit for the company being successful, but it's kind of unclear how responsible you are for it. And I know I have strong thesis as to why things work and why things don't, but it's not like I can deterministically change anything. Like I just have good ideas and some inkling of bad ideas. But yeah, you want to be regarded as a point tool, right? Like someone that people want to call in for a specific thing, because if you're a generalist advisor, then they don't really know what to call on you for. You should be more of a VC. This relates to the conversation that we had pre-show, right? You want to be the rideshare guy. You want to be the points guy. And for me, I'm the DevRel guy. Or dev community guy, So
I was thinking the dev guy has the nicest cachet. What do you think if we had to come up with a nickname for you right now, Shawn?
Dev is too broad, but yeah, sure. So I was the learning in public guy, and then I became, I had some various theses around self-provisioning runtimes and cloud IDEs that they got really popular, DevRel and dev communities is what I specialize in, and people come to me for that. It's a very comfortable position to be in.
Are you saying DevRel, DEVREL?
Dev relations, yes. I should probably talk about that. So the quick TLDR on that is that developer tooling companies are very valuable, but they struggle to communicate their value because it's a very, very technical topic. And if you take a traditional marketer and slap them on dev tool companies, they typically fail because everything that they do falls flat to a developer-facing audience, because the traditional tropes like, hey, sell benefits, not features, is exactly wrong. for developers. Developers are builders, and they want to know what your thing does and leave them to figure out what the benefits are.
Got it. Interesting. While we're kind of on this sort of deep dive into the DevRel and DevTools world, what are some of the like areas or categories that you're most excited about, either on a personal level? I don't know if you want to spill all the beans about your startup, but sort of like from either a personal level or an investment level that like you think maybe are a little under the radar that like, hey, if our audience is listening and they're a founder or more likely an angel investor, that like, oh, keep an eye out for this area, look for some startups or look at some decks in this area.
There's so many.
Well, if you had to pick one, that's why that's all of startup and life and tech, right? There's a million things to do or that you care about, but you got to pick one thing to work on today.
All right, so I'll talk about one investment I have, and then I can talk about the company I'm working on.
Sure.
One of the investments I had just announced their seed round today. It's an
Cool.
$18 million seed round and a $75 million valuation, which is pretty hot for a seed round.
Say that one more time. 8 and 25.
18 million
18.
at 75.
Oh, at 75. Yeah, definitely.
It's Chroma, led by Quiet Capital, Astasia Myers, who I also have a ongoing professional advising relationship with. And they are the first sort of open source embeddings database that is very lightweight and easy to use inside of like a Jupyter notebook. And what is an embeddings database is a new kind of database. By the way, one of the rules of thumbs in DevTools investing is whenever you encounter a database, just hold your nose, close your eyes, and invest. Because databases make money left, right, and center just because they are stores of truth and facts, and people know how to pay them. We know how to run cloud businesses on them. And the largest companies like MongoDB and Snowflake are all databases. Okay, so Chroma is an embeddings database. What does that mean? It is a new generation of sort of like AI native databases that understands how to take the vectors that you get out of AI search queries and then return you like similarity or distance ranked results. And that is obviously very, very hard for anything AI enabled search or chat, anything with memory for large language models which do not have memory.
Very cool. And what is? Do you want to talk a little bit about the startup idea that you're working on?
Okay. So it is a model distillation company. We haven't settled on the name yet, but the general trend is that in last year and sort of those bits started this year, we have been trending towards larger and larger models, longer chains, larger context, larger prompts, and that is all great and fine. It is slow, expensive, and you don't own it. And so we are basically building a platform to empower the counter trend to that. Smaller models that are domain specific, that only do one thing that you own, that you can run on the edge, and it's just friendlier because it won't kill you. And I'm generally a fan of things that will not pose an existential threat to humanity. So if you're interested in AI safety, come talk to me. and model distillation.
Very cool. I figured AI would come up at some point in our discussion, Shawn.
It's a tool. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. Yeah, tell us what you're going to
say. I think there's certainly a lot of hype, and it definitely attracts dreamers who hand wave over very, very important capabilities that we don't have yet. And I don't like it because it really complicates the discussion for builders, right? Like, what can we do today instead of, I'm positive we're going to have this 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And, don't be so sure, because we still don't have self-driving cars. And we've been predicting this since, whenever, 2013 or whatever, right?
Not me, but others have.
Yes, like AI is simultaneously accelerating faster than we think, but it's also further away than we think.
Yeah, I think it's also the solution to your guys' question about all your writing that you were talking about eventually. So maybe. So now that you're going to go in the other direction, right? You're going to start a company, or you're on the process. Now that you've funded a bunch of companies, you've done angel investing, you've done scouting. The thing I've been hearing a lot about listeners to our podcast is we have the angels, but we also have a lot of founders that are like, wow, the psychology of what we're learning is really helpful. Like, I now know how to talk to these people, right? Versus just sending emails and hoping for the best, right? So if you could go back now and put yourself in the shoes of a founder, with everything you know about funding companies, what advice would you give?
About what? About being a
Oh,
founder?
fundraising. Like if you're
About
going,
fundraising.
yeah. Like what would you?
Like with angels or with VCs or?
Yeah. Well, I have a term sheet that I can't show you right now, but it's very, very hot topic right now that I'm dealing with.
All right, perfect.
Look,
Yeah.
there are 300 VCs out there that you could possibly raise from. They all have money. They're all good looking. They all have very firm handshakes. What you need is a way to tell them apart, and they all provide you references who love them, right? That is their job. What you would like ideally to have is to build a relationship where you trust someone when you're in trouble. When shit hits the fan, you need someone to call at 11:59 p.m. at night. Who do you call? And is it a guy who is a guy, woman, a guy, girl who you would feel uncomfortable sharing your deepest, darkest secrets with, or was it someone you would trust to have your back no matter what? And have your back not in a sycophantic way, not in like everything you do is awesome way.
Yeah.
Have your back in a, hey, you're an idiot, do this other thing instead. It's extremely obvious to me, but not to you because you're too deep into it. So that's the kind of advisor that you want, and you want to try to build that before you do this fundraising thing, because then it's very clear that I've met people who've pitched 200 firms, and then they got some deals and all that, but they don't have a good relationship, and that's ultimately what you want to build, because essentially that is going to be in some small way a co-founder of the company. So you definitely want to build that strong relationship from a very early stage. Okay. Apart from that, I feel like I was way too serious on that stuff. You also want. I think, okay, so I'm wearing a shirt talking about open source. One part of developer tooling that differs from typical company building is that you can actually prototype things in public in open source, and when it gets traction, then you raise, right? Because you have a bunch of data points showing that you essentially have put out a free version of something that a lot of people will love, that are high value people, that you can start building a business on top of. So any number of companies will fund you immediately based on good open source metrics, and that is an avenue that developers have that most other founders do not have.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
And by the way, by the way, one thing I always like to offer to general investing audience is that the reason to invest in developer tooling is extremely sticky. Once you've picked a developer tool and you've built the whole workflow on it, you've built your entire business on it, you don't change, right? And Stripe's innovation, in some sense, was to turn banking into a developer tool that you can access from an API. And also one more thing, which is developers, and this is the rationale for DevRel, developer relations, which is developers buy like consumers, but they spend like businesses. So you can reach them through traditional channels like content marketing and conferences and speaking in podcasts like this one. But then once they get your technology and once they adopt you in their business, they spend like an enterprise, which is a very interesting dynamic for cost of acquisition and customer lifetime value. Okay. Finally, I think when pitching, I think people very much focus on like the finer details of like what the product roadmap is, like all that. Team is very important, but actually, what is the precursor to a team is a really good mission or vision of what the future is going to be, and that is essentially what I am. I can raise a significant amount of money just on an extremely good vision, because that brings in the customers, the employees, the investors, right? Have a strong, definite, optimist viewpoint on where the future is going and why the time is now and why you're the right person to do it.
Cool. Very good advice. And I will say, for those watching on YouTube, I was wondering what your sweatshirt said. I knew it was a Star Wars reference. I like it though. I didn't realize it was may the source. May the source be open. Okay, cool. So this is a good incentive to watch these podcasts on YouTube. And I think we're going to add video to our podcast too soon. Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, Colin, I think we've got some trending Twitter threads for Shawn that we want to get his take on.
Oh, geez. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Hot takes.
Yes.
I haven't seen this before, by the way.
You have not seen these before. No, we do not give you much heads up here.
No, the hottest of takes are appreciated. All right. So this one is from Will Manidis. You've got to stop angel investing. You need to be slowly accumulating huge positions in 2 to 3 businesses run by you or your close associates. You can't index fund success. You got to go all in. Life isn't about owning a small piece of the pie. It's about eating the whole thing. And there's one more follow up to it. Writing 5K angel checks into middling B2B software companies is the most coward's move imaginable. You might as well be buying bottles. Deploy 99% of your net worth and 100% of your leverage into funding the weirdest shit imaginable. God will not have his work done by cowards. So yeah. Shawn, what's your thoughts here?
Well, so this is the always fun topic of should you diversify or should you go put all your eggs in one basket, right? And I think different people have different risk tolerances. Different people have different goals when investing. And so I like that spirit, and I'm doing it with my own business. And to some extent, you should not. You should figure out what your goals are when angel investing. And if your goals are in angel investing are learn from a bunch of people, and try to build a strong network, and generally just be an advisor to companies. I think spreading a large net, like I have 25, like it's manageable. Like they all know who I am. I have contacts on most of them anyway. I think that's manageable. But I also think it's very true that I do see a bunch of investors, spend meaningless checks on companies that are not that ambitious, and like even your best case scenario isn't that good anyway. So why are you bothering? So I definitely agree with some of that sentiment, and then disagree on the strength of the sentiment for everybody. But obviously, you have to hype it up a little bit to be on Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, I do think go for it, Shawn.
Sorry. Well, I do think like you want to see life-changing companies. You want to see like world-changing companies, and the next great to-do list or the next great open source retool isn't going to do that. And so a lot of people have poor theses that are just time sucks, and they think they have to do it because their friends are doing it. And to that, I just say no one's pressuring you. You can just ignore them or bow out, and try to focus on the big wins. And there are enough big wins that you can index big wins and not index small, medium, and large wins. So why not try to go after only big ones?
Yeah, I like what you're saying. And I think what stood out to me is sort of the reason why you're doing it has to be important. The goal has to be important, not just because everyone else is doing it because it seems sexy. Kind of like what is your real reason? What's your real goal? What are you trying to achieve here?
I almost want people to have like an emotional reaction of like, wow, if you're right, this will change everything, or oh my God, you're an idiot. Like this will never work. But if it works, you figured out something really important. Or like the best scenario actually is they have a working demo already, and you're like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And if you see, whenever I see that, I just invest.
I like the thing for me about the diversification versus concentration thing is that diversification is about muting volatility, right? Like that's the whole point of diversification is you try to spread so that you don't have high volatility, right? And concentration essentially can lend itself to higher volatility. And I was thinking there's just an interesting like piece to this where, it is true that in like venture investing, angel investing, you kind of want the high volatility spike, right? You want to capture that, right? Like that's where we all make our money. And so I guess you
want concentration rather than volatility. You want to be concentrated in the right thing, right? Yeah. Volatility down is never fun.
Limited downside, unlimited upside, as always.
And I think it's very important for angel investors to be very clear whether they're in this as a portfolio manager or as a side hobby. For me, it's a side hobby. For others, it might be they're like a mini PM. Right, and that really changes the calculation of like what kind of volatility you're willing to accept.
Totally. All right, so we're going to do another one, and this one is like completely different because it's tax season. It's a fun one. This is from Caitlin Donnelly.
And it kind of goes to what Shawn was saying about managing all of your investments. So this is Caitlin, friend of the pod. I'm going to give her a shout out. All right, Colin.
Caitlin Donnelly, GP at Avalanche VC. My biggest regret for my period of prolific angel investing is the K1s from all the small checks. Taxes, what a mess. And I think she's referring to like SPVs here that produce K1s.
Yeah. Okay. So what you just want to response? There's no question.
Yeah.
There's no
taxes are a
question
mess.
here,
You
Shawn.
definitely
So it's just like free response. I
you
have
want
no
them-
thoughts.
you-
I have some thoughts.
no, you want a tax guy, and you want to send the tax guy everything, and like, pay someone else to do it, because you definitely don't want that to be an issue. But also, I do try to just be a direct investor in all my investments. So I've only done one SPV out of it. Everything else is direct, and that's just cleaner in terms of ownership. You also don't. SPVs tend to have like a syndicate lead that takes like a 20% carry or whatever.
Hate those
if you
guys.
can source directly, do that. And your tax situation will be simpler because you only make money or you don't.
I think that's actually pretty good advice because if
You also get to
go
do the 83B filing.
Yeah, if you go the direct route, right? Like you don't have all of these. I kind of replied to Caitlin, like I didn't get I'm in a bunch of I'm an LP in a bunch of like small funds and some big funds here in LA, and I didn't get my last K1 until October last year. So it's like you're really waiting a long time if you're in the funds or the SPV route. I don't know what the hell takes so long, but it takes a while versus the direct where you just sometimes never hear from them.
Yes, which is another argument. Yeah, another argument, by the way, for not doing small checks, right? Because if you want to do all this work anyway, it's like a per deal basis. It's the same work whether you invested 5K or 50K or 500K. Then try to do bigger checks, try to have larger conviction. It does mean you have to have more available capital, but that's the bar for angel investing, really. Like if we're being real about it. A lot of people want to dabble. To those people who are dabbling, I say start a paper portfolio and see how good you are anyway, right? Like that's fine. When you're playing with live ammo, you got to deal with all these things.
Yeah. There's like a lot of like actual work that goes into the portfolio management piece, as you said. Like once you start getting above 10 investments and you actually care about what they are, you gotta start managing it in some perspective.
And keeping relationships with founders. Like, don't forget why you got in this in the first place. Like, you should try to be helpful to your founders because they'll refer other founders. And guess what? All my best investments are from other founders. Like, founders are really, really freaking good at picking other founders because they only send you people who are better than them.
Yeah.
There was a Twitter thread on this that basically you as a founder don't squander the time when you're a founder because that's your best deal flow. And it's so true. But it's like I literally tweeted earlier this week though that like I'm getting close to like, and I had a new one coming yesterday, like almost 40% of the deals that I'm like ended up doing and syndicating coming from cold Twitter DMs, like inbound.
Yes, that happens as well.
I've been blown away by the quality of like people that just outreach. So long story short, they come from
hopefully
everywhere.
You're not syndicating any LinkedIn DMs though, Colin, because those are a different species. Shawn doesn't check his LinkedIn. I saw on his profile.
Nice. Yes, I've hot LinkedIn takes, but no, I might regret them. I don't think Elon has been a good steward of LinkedIn, of Twitter. That said, yes, my biggest deal at the lowest valuation came from a cold Twitter DM. I took one look at the deal. I talked to him once and committed on the spot. And I'm extremely happy for what he's doing so far. So yes, keep your DMs open, guys.
All right. I think that's awesome. A perfect note to close on. Well, Shawn, we really appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely look forward to doing our first DevTools, dev resource investment here at some point in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, more than welcome. My pleasure.